Today's opening words are by Andrea Hawkins Camper. Gather we now into this space, this time when the wheel turns and the veil shatters. Gather we now to remember, to grieve, to prophesy, to complete our harvest before the long dark comes. Gather we now to tell the old stories and sing the old songs, to be as we have always been, the voice of our people eternal. Gather we now to celebrate that which was, that which is, and that which will be. Gather we now, as we have always done, united by story and bound by love. The UU spirit will light the chalice here in the sanctuary. I invite you to light your own chalice and place it where it can be seen by all of us, if you are able. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Mary will share an excerpt from Ezekiel 37, followed by our opening hymn.
The hand of the Lord was upon me, and carried me out in the spirit of the Lord, and set me down in the midst of a valley, which was full of bones, and caused me to pass by them round about, and behold, there were very many in the open valley, and lo, they were very dry. And he said unto me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, O Lord God, thou knowest. He said unto me, Prophesy upon these bones, and say unto them, O ye dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God unto these bones, Behold, I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and ye shall live, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise, and behold, a shaking. And the bones came together, bone to his bone. And when I beheld, lo, the sinews and flesh came upon them, and the skin covered them above, but there was no breath in them. Thus saith the Lord God, Come from the four winds, O breath, breathe upon these slain that they may live. So I prophesied as I was commanded me, and the breath came into them. And they lived and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, Our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. We are cut off from our parts. Therefore prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, O my people, I brought you up out of your graves, and shall put my spirit in you, and ye shall live. Now will you please join me in singing? Can you guess what? Dry bones. Okay. Ezekiel cried them, dry bones. Ezekiel cried them, dry bones. Ezekiel cried them, dry bones. Oh, hear the word of the Lord. The toe bone connected to the heel bone connected to the foot bone connected to the leg bone connected to the knee bone connected to the thigh bone connected to the backbone connected to the neck bone connected to the head bone. Oh, hear the word of the Lord. Them bones gonna walk around. Them bones gonna walk around. Them bones gonna walk around. Oh, hear the word of the Lord. The head bone connected to the neck bone connected to the backbone connected to the thigh bone connected to the knee bone connected to the leg bone connected to the foot bone connected to the heel bone connected to the toe bone. Oh, hear the word of the Lord.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us today. We acknowledge that our UU sanctuary stands on land that was once inhabited by coastal Chumash and Salinan indigenous peoples, whose ancestors lived primarily in the San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation, inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with our 7 principles. Today's service centers around the 3rd principle. We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Spiritual growth isn't about a vertical ascent to heaven, but about growth in every dimension at once. It's spirituality in 3D. Growth in spirit doesn't measure one's proximity to a God above, but rather the spaciousness of one's own soul, the volume, its capacity, its size. We need souls that can take in the world in all its complexity and diversity, yet still maintain our integrity. And we need souls that can love and be in relationship with all of this complexity. Instead of fight or flight, we need a spiritual posture of embrace. My name is Judy Butler, and I am your worship associate this morning. I'd like to extend a special welcome to today's guests, ghouls, I believe we have one of those in the audience, and visitors. We're glad you joined us this morning. If you're not on our mailing list, please visit our website at www.uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed about all our activities. And please check out what's happening. A weekly e-blast sent to all our members and friends. This is a great way to keep up with the latest news in our community. And a reminder, if you wish to see this or any of our past Zoom services, again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members and the undead to consider joining our community. Please contact Diane DeMarco or a board member if you are interested. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone, including all you spirits out there. The affirmation, as is our covenant, is both a recognition of the nature of our community as well as a promise we make and aspire to. Let us now recite our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another.
The Gossamer Curtain by Anonymous. Grandfather always wore his brown suit on Sundays, so when he died, they dressed him in it, along with his favorite fedora hat. He'd had 4 strokes, and his speech was so garbled hardly anyone could understand him. He kept calling the girls boys and the boys girls. We cousins were all young and giggled a lot, thinking he was teasing us. Perhaps he was. Flash forward 10 years, on the anniversary of his passing. Mother was in the kitchen making breakfast, her eyes red from crying, the toast burned, and the eggs half scrambled in the pan. "Are you okay, Mom?" "Well," and here came the pause when she debated whether or not to tell me. "I had a dream about Pop last night." "Really? Was it bad?" No, not at all. He showed up at the foot of my bed in his brown Sunday suit, and of course, his hat. I told him how much I missed him, and he smiled and said that he was fine and not to worry. Then he disappeared. I said, not knowing what to make of it. "Well, at least you know he's okay with being dead." Mother laughed and sniffed away the sadness. The phone rang. It was Aunt Jane. "Can I speak to your mother?" she said in a weird voice. I handed the receiver over. Mother listened silently and finally said, oh dear, Jenny Wren." That was the name Grandfather had called her. Something was up. "What happened?" I asked, worried. She had exactly the same dream last night.
We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community members and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand. When Andy or I call your name, please stand or unmute yourself, then speak. I'll raise my hand. Just as a note to our Zoom members, we are having people in the sanctuary if you want to come and join us on a Sunday. We call this a hybrid service. So you can be here or you can be there, but we'll be glad to see you anywhere.
Are there any other announcements in the sanctuary? Okay, out in Zoom land, Kat, you raised your hand. Please unmute yourself and share.
Thank you. Happy Halloween, everybody. As you might know from looking at the newsletter, this is our 6th annual Thanksgiving basket food drive in liaison with Denilda Reyes at Link Family Resource Center. We're hoping to make it a big success. This coming Saturday, and we're sending out reminders, you can come to the church and bring food. All the information is on the newsletter. I understand that it's kind of a hassle to shop these days, so we'd be happy to shop for you. We are accepting monetary donations. I'd be happy to come to your house and pick up a check. You can make the checks out to Rebecca Heinrichs, and yeah, okay, and or Denilda Reyes, one or the other. Both of their names are on the website, on the newsletter. You can look for the spelling there. So thank you so much for helping us make this as big as a success as it was last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Lou, I see you have your hand raised. Please unmute yourself.
Good morning and happy Halloween. Men's group meets tomorrow at 10 by Zoom. Hope to see everybody there.
Thank you, Lou. I'll send out the invite for that. And back here in the sanctuary, Joel has something to say. Go ahead, Joel.
Board of Directors. If you would like to have a say in how the church is run and operates, here's your chance. We are still accepting names for secretary, treasurer, member at large, and the election committee for 2022. There'll be an announcement in the newsletter. You can contact me, Judy Butler, or Dolores to put your name up for the election, which the election will occur December 4th. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Judy, I think that's it for announcements. So back to you.
All right, thank you. Next week, the Reverend Ken Reed Brown from Hingham, Massachusetts, will present To Everything a Season.
This poem, Haunted Houses by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. All houses wherein men have lived and died are haunted houses. Through the open doors, the harmless phantoms on their errands glide, with feet that make no sounds upon the floors. We meet them at the doorway, on the stair, along the passages they come and go, impalpable impressions on the air, a sense of something to and fro. There are more guests at the table than the hosts invited. The illuminated hall is thronged with quiet, inoffensive ghosts, as silent as the pictures on the wall. The stranger at my fireside cannot see the forms I see, nor hear the sounds I hear. He but perceives what is, while unto me all that has been is visible and clear. We have no title deeds to house or lands. Owners and occupants of earlier dates from graves forgotten stretch their dusty hands and hold in mortmain still their old estates. The spirit world around this world of sense floats like an atmosphere, and everywhere wafts through these earthly mists and vapors dense a vital breath of more ethereal air. Our little lives are kept in equipoise by opposite attractions and desires, the struggle of the instinct that enjoys and the more noble instinct that aspires. These perturbations, this perpetual jar of earthly wants and aspirations high, come from the influence of an unseen star, an undiscovered planet in our sky. And as the moon from some dark gate of cloud throws o'er the sea a floating bridge of light, across whose trembling planks our fancies crowd into the realm of mystery and night. So, from the world of spirits there descends a bridge of light, connecting it with this, o'er whose unsteady floor that sways and bends wander our thoughts above the dark abyss.
And we need to remember that Longfellow was a lifelong Unitarian. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as a part of your personal life. But please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship with us this morning. This is a time of community building. If the collective flames of these candles embody all the joys and sorrows which may have gone unspoken today, but are also deeply felt in this community.
This is a true story to the best of my recollection. I was one of those college students who rarely slept, not only because of homework, but recently due to the lingering sensation that someone, something was following me around the passageways of Marion Hall dormitory. Very late at night, usually around 3 or 4 in the morning. For over a week, I could hear the clicking of what sounded like rosary beads and the swish of a long robe close behind me, in step with every move I made. And with every corner I turned, so did the sound of the unseen footsteps. Sometimes I would stop suddenly, half expecting some practical jokester to catch me frightened and have a good laugh on me. But no, all was quiet, and the footsteps, or should I say, the soft patter of someone's delicate feet, had halted. But as I returned to my room, so did the clicking of those beads, the swish of the robe, and the light shuffle. I saw nothing, no shadow, no illumination or rays of light from heaven above. I think there's a ghost in the dorm on the 3rd floor, I told a classmate who was heavily into Edgar Cayce and the supernatural. I think she's, yes, it's a she, my friend smiled knowingly. Huh? She's one of the nuns who died in the infirmary many years ago. Want me to help? What? How do you know this? What? I just know. She must be lost again and latched on to you. Me? Why me? I mean, I'm not afraid or anything, just spooked. Don't worry, I'll help you get rid of her. Rid of her? She's dead already, right? Did she have a name? Dunno. Meet me in the chapel tonight around 3. She'll probably be trailing you again by then. The chapel? Why? That's the surest way to get her back to her bed. You see, the infirmary was on the 2nd floor, just above the chapel, until the 1940s when they remodeled and turned it into the library. But she doesn't know that. And you're on the 3rd floor, so. Wait a minute. Are you saying. How do you know all this? It's no secret, at least to a few of us clairvoyants. Right. Her ruse had gone a bit too far. I stood to leave. She's done this before, she said with such certainty that I couldn't help but find out for myself. That night, once again, the shuffle of feet, the clicking, the ruffle. I simply had to get rid of her. I went to the chapel, and there was my friend waiting for me at the entrance, wearing a long white shawl and carrying a flashlight. I thought you'd come, she said, and turned off the flashlight. The stained glass windows cast shadows in blue and yellow and red. I felt a cold chill and almost bailed. Now approach the altar slowly. I'll wait here. Say 3 Hail Marys, genuflect after each one, then without turning around, make your way back to the entrance. We'll close the door then, and she'll never bother you again. Unless, of course, unless what? Let's just say you've got to stop roaming the halls at all hours for a while.
And now a guided meditation from Christine Robinson's Ritual for the Day of the Dead. At this darkening time of the year, our thoughts turn to things past, to life retreating. To those who are no longer with us, images come to our minds of dear companions who once graced our lives, loved ones whom we miss, persons whose lives made an impact on our lives. Of all those who were here, contributing, caring, and are now gone, our memories bring joy and sadness. Let us not push these feelings away, for our recollections attest to the enduring importance of these friends, this love, our memories. May these brave and lovely spirits live again in our tender thoughts and prove that death and distance are powerless to sever the bonds that connect truly loving hearts. Let us now enter the stillness. please come back now.
The good ones. 1. 3 months after Dad died, I went again to visit the family house in St. Petersburg. Mom was at work, my sister M.A. at home with her toddler. My son was a year older than her child. The flight from up north wasn't bad, but I needed a shower. "Can you watch Dax while I take one?" I asked. "Of course, go ahead." Just then, the water in the ensuite shower erupted full force. No one was in there to turn it on. I looked at my sister. "It's just Dad," she said. "Say hello." "Hi, Dad." I turned my head and focused my eyes in opposing directions to encompass all possibilities. "It's just me, Dad. Jan. I'm going to take a shower." The bathroom did not feel occupied, but I shooed out any presence that might have been in attendance. The water still ran. I took my shower. Dad had killed himself in this house. I was sad he was gone, but understood his action. He'd been very sick for a long time. Even so, it surprised me that he lingered, seemingly to keep watch. As unsettling as it was at first, it didn't take long to sink in and for me to recognize a loving spirit. My father had never hurt me and would never do so now, even after his death. I was not afraid when I saw his red lazy boy recliner with no one in it, rocking, and Buffy, my sister's faithful German shepherd, lying next to it, keeping watch herself. When the China Siamese cat fell off the dresser in Mom's room of its own accord, I was a little bemused. He had bought it for her as a gift. Why would he smash it? I couldn't think of a good reason, or any reason for that matter. But I didn't know everything. I swept up the broken pieces. 2. I remember asking my mother years ago why there were no pictures of my twin brother. He died from sudden infant death syndrome when we were 4 months old. 4 months old. I wanted to know what he looked like. Mom said she had taken us to the portrait studio, but when she got the proofs, they weren't good. I was the only one in the picture. She told the photographer he must have done something wrong. She returned the proofs, or disposed of them. I've never seen them. But it was then that I decided that my brother John would be my guardian angel. It comforted me to know he was with me. Whether it was true or not, I wished it so. I believe he had always been part of the spirit world. His absence in our picture was proof. 3. My mother also told me that she had been visited by her mom after she passed from pneumonia when Mom was 13. My maternal grandmother appeared at the end of my mother's bed, very much like the pop-pop in the first story today, shortly after her death. Mom never forgot that visit. It was comforting to her, she said. Just like it is comforting to me that my father stayed around after his death. I like to believe he wanted to be assured we were all right, and we were. We were in pain, but we were all right. It is he I worried about. It would be unconscionable to expect him to keep tabs on his wife, his 3 daughters, and 2 grandchildren for any extended period. He deserved to rest. Mom sold the house shortly after my visit. He didn't relocate to any of our residences that I know of. He might be wondering where we all went, and wondering, too, where he should go. It's been years since I felt my father's presence, but he's never far from my thoughts. I wrote a whole book dedicated to him. When I try to fathom whether there is an afterlife, I become immersed in a conflux of religious dogma, common sense, and wishful thinking. All I know is he was there, and he knew I was there. Just like my mother knew her mom was with her, however briefly. And I believed my twin was with me, even though I never had a direct experience with his spirit. Believing was enough. I know my father wanted to reassure me in some way, maybe the only way he could in that realm, and caveats aside, he did just that. Along with my brother and my grandmother, he, my father, is one of the good ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. The anthem today is All Souls Night by Lorena McKennett and will be sung by Mary Schwalbe.
Bonfires dot the rolling hillsides, figures dance around and around, drums that pulse out echoes of darkness, moving to the pagan sound. Somewhere in a hidden memory, images float before my eyes, of fragrant nights of straw and bonfires, dancing till the next sunrise. I can see the lights in the distance trembling in the dark cloak of night. Candles and lanterns are dancing, dancing a waltz on All Souls Night. Figures and cornstalks bend in the shadows, held up tall as the flames leap high. The green knight holds the holly bush to mark where the old year passes by. I can see the lights in the distance trembling in the dark cloak of night. Candles and lanterns are dancing, dancing a waltz on All Souls Night. Bonfires dot the rolling hillsides, figures dance around and around to drums that pulse out echoes of darkness and moving to the pagan sound. Standing on the bridge that crosses the river that goes out to the sea, the wind is full of 1,000 voices. They pass by the bridge and me. I can see the lights in the distance trembling in the dark cloak of night. Candles and lanterns are dancing, dancing a waltz on All Souls Night. I can see the lights in the distance trembling in the dark cloak of night. Candles and lanterns are dancing, dancing a waltz on All Souls Night.
Today, I will share excerpts from a talk titled "A Halloween History" by Reverend David Wellman of the UU Church of Bowling Green. Although our information about the Celtic Samhain celebration is limited, we do know that the celebration was what modern anthropologists called a liminal event. Liminal means to occupy a position at or on both sides of a boundary or a threshold. This liminal event was a boundary, a threshold, a period in between. Samhain marked the moment of transition from one state to another, specifically the transition from the bounty of summer to the dearth of winter. We think that in Celtic culture, Samhain was also liminal in another sense. It was the time when the boundaries between our world and the spirit world were especially close, so close that inhabitants of the spirit world could easily come into our world, and inhabitants of our world could, if they were not careful, mistakenly wander into the spirit world, if they were not careful. Because of the closeness of the spirit world, Samhain was also a time of omens and prophecy. This connection between our world and the spirit world has been a theme running through Halloween celebrations ever since. On the other hand, the contribution of early Catholic Christian practices to our Halloween is well documented. Starting in the 800s, the Christian feast of All Saints' Day was set at November 1. It was also known as All Hallows Day or Hallowmas. And so October 31 became All Hallows Eve, from which we get our word Halloween. In the Catholic Christian calendar, November 2 was All Souls Day. All Hallows Day memorializes saints, but All Souls Day is a day of prayer for all the Christian dead. In the early Christian calendar, this 3-day period, October 31 to November 2, was one especially concerned with the dead. In the first part of the 19th century, Halloween was primarily a celebration of Celtic heritage, how great it was to be Irish or Scottish, a character it lost only when the celebration of Halloween began to slowly spread out from the Scottish and Irish parts of the cities. The best way to understand how the North American Halloween developed is to look at the American Halloween celebration in the 1800s. If you could somehow travel back in time and see this celebration, you would notice in some ways it would seem familiar, but in many ways it would seem quite different. By the second half of the 19th century, the Halloween celebration had, as it were, developed two distinct aspects. There was the domestic Halloween, or the home parties where family and friends played games such as bobbing for apples, while girls and young women employed various methods to divine who they would marry, an echo of the connection of Halloween to the supernatural. But the 19th century celebration also had very public aspects, such as parades, with people sometimes in costume, young children going door to door, reciting poems or singing songs, the mumming tradition, in exchange for fruit or nuts. And the most famous public aspect of Halloween, roaming bands of prank-playing teenage boys and young men. Indeed, newspaper accounts of Halloweens from this time seem to be overwhelmingly concerned with prank playing. Headlines commonly read, "Are they getting out of hand?" As we enter the 20th century, the Halloween celebration that we know begins to form. We witness some interesting changes. Prank playing, which had been such a prominent feature of earlier Halloweens, begins to be controlled. Halloween parades virtually disappear. In notable contrast to Christmas celebration, which remains centered on the family, the domestic or home Halloween disappears as well. All Halloween activities become centered on the peer group or age group. Groups of children continue to go door to door, but now they say, "Trick or treat," a phrase which seems to first have appeared in the late 1920s, and are given candy in return, a practice much encouraged by candy manufacturers. And there is another aspect of Halloween history, namely the claim by fundamentalists that Halloween is satanic. There are great ironies in this claim. Several of our holidays have both religious and non-religious origins. Indeed, don't forget that at one point Halloween was a Catholic All Hallows Eve. But usually the religious origin of holidays is Christian. But in the case of Halloween, the fundamentalists claim the religious origin is pagan. As a result, the two separate groups are making the claim. Neo-pagans who see a pagan origin as a good thing, and some Christian fundamentalists who see a pagan origin as a bad thing. In their terms, satanic. The Halloween we know is an American invention. We Americans selected and reformulated our inherited traditions to give expression to various elements of our culture. Indeed, in the inherited elements that we have chosen to retain are some which are not much expressed elsewhere: mockery, social inversion, and an acknowledgement of the supernatural. It is our Halloween in that we have chosen to emphasize some elements which were somewhat present in the past, but now have taken on greater importance. These include imagination, creativity, and the dramatic expression of who we are or who we would like to be. It is our Halloween because it changes as our culture changes, with new elements invented and introduced to express the themes of the holiday in new ways.
Thank you, Randy. The morning offering will now be given and received. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Excuse me. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and our institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving. For those at home, please use one of the methods shown on the screen. Thank you.
The offering music today is called The Headless Horseman, and I wrote it for a version of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow that my partner and I produced in Westchester County, where Sleepy Hollow is. I'm just going to read the lyrics, and I won't be singing it, but think about the lyrics as I play. Through the vale of Sleepy Hollow, on the shores of the Tappan Sea, 'tis the fate of the headless horseman to search for his head and to wander aimlessly. Oh, he rides and rides like a wind in the night. He can come and go in a flash of light. With the stars for his eye and the moon for a face, he can disappear without a trace. With the pounding hooves and the silent screams echoing through the hollow, he rides and rides like a wind in the night. He can come and go in a flash of light. He rides and rides and he rides and he rides and he rides. Ta-da!
Thank you, Jan. That song is so visual. Our thanks for all gifts given and received by the work of this community. Let us now sing the doxology.
Spirit of light, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of light, come to me, come to me.
The world's shortest horror story was originally published in 1948. It was written by Frederick Brown and consists of 2 sentences. It reads, "The last man on earth sat alone in a room." There was a knock at the door. Inspired with this novelty, one year Nick Geary challenged creative writing high school students at the Berkeley Center for the Arts to create their own spooky sentences. Here is a sampling. "I took a late shower last night, and when I got out, I saw my reflection in the mirror smiling at me, except I wasn't smiling." That was by a student named Lewis Lee. "Honey, your dad was planning on abandoning us for dinner, but don't worry, I took care of it," my mother said, tenderly placing a very large fillet into the sizzling cast iron skillet. And that was by a young woman named Gabriel Balmer. Please join in singing the closing hymn, "When the Spirit Says Do."
You got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh Lord, you got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you got to sing. Oh Lord, you got to sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you got to dance. Oh Lord, you got to dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 You got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you got to laugh. Oh Lord, you got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. 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 You got to shout when the Spirit says shout. You got to shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you got to shout. Oh Lord, you got to shout when the Spirit says shout. 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 You got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh Lord, you got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
Whew, all right. I get my breath back. Let us now recite the valediction. We extinguish the flame of this chalice, and we know that the light of truth and love of this community go with us until we meet again.
The veil between worlds is defined by Celtic tradition as the boundary between our material world and the spirit world. It is also expressed in this tradition as the thin veil separating the end of harvest and the beginning of a cold, long winter. A membrane between reality and the constructed world, between abundance and strife, where life and death exist simultaneously, precariously entwined. If you come upon that bridge that crosses through this thin veil, explore it, sense it, be it on this Hallows Eve.